The electric razor hit the floor with a metallic clang. Black strands of hair scattered across the white tiles like fallen feathers. Madison Grainer sat trembling in the leather chair, tears streaming down her face as half her head gleamed bald under the harsh fluorescent lights. Principal Derek Morrison stood behind her, his bloodshot eyes burning with rage, the razor still humming in his grip. "This is a lesson about respect," he snarled, his voice echoing off the oak-paneled walls of his office. "You think you can destroy my property and walk away." Madison's whole body shook. Her left hand gripped the armrest so tight her knuckles turned white. The right side of her head still had her long black hair, but the left was completely shaved, pink scalp showing through like a wound. She had no idea that a simple piece of chewing gum would destroy everything. Madison Grainer was what teachers called a model student. 16 years old. Honor roll every semester. Volunteer tutor. Never a single detention. She lived with her mother, Hermione, in a small apartment near the school. Money was tight, but they made it work. Hermione worked long hours at a law firm downtown, always coming home exhausted, but still making time to help Madison with homework. "Your mom's pretty cool," Madison's friend Tyler Chen had said once. "Mine just yells at me to study harder." Principal Derek Morrison sat in his office that morning, staring at a family photo on his desk. The frame was cracked down the middle, splitting the image of a younger Morrison with his wife and daughter. His jaw clenched as he touched the crack. "Sir." His secretary knocked. "The school board meeting is in an hour." "I know," Morrison snapped, not looking up. The secretary retreated quickly. Everyone knew to avoid Morrison when he got like this. The man ruled Westfield High School with an iron fist. Had for 15 years. At 52, he was built like a former linebacker, 6'3" with shoulders that barely fit through doorways. His office was a shrine to control, everything in perfect order, from the Italian leather chairs to the mahogany desk that cost more than most teachers made in a month. Madison first encountered Morrison in the hallway after helping Sarah. She was hurrying to class, adjusting her backpack, when a voice boomed behind her. "Miss Grainer." She froze. Everyone knew that tone. Morrison approached slowly, his dress shoes clicking on the linoleum. "Your shirt is untucked." Madison looked down. A tiny corner of her uniform shirt had come loose while helping Sarah. "Sorry, sir, I don't want excuses." He reached out and tucked the shirt in himself, his fingers lingering too long on the fabric. "Appearance matters, Miss Grainer. Disorder in dress leads to disorder in life." Tyler Chen watched from his locker, whispering to another student. "Stay away from him. Hannah Morrison used to be my friend, before she transferred schools." Madison pulled back politely. "Yes, sir. I'll be more careful." Morrison's eyes narrowed. "See that you are. I'm watching you. Miss Grainer, I watch all my students, some more closely than others." She escaped down the hall, but she could feel his stare burning into her back. Her hands shook as she entered her classroom. Something about the way he'd looked at her, the way he'd touched her shirt, made her skin crawl. "You okay?" Tyler asked, sliding into the seat next to her. "Yeah, just Morrison's intense." Tyler's face darkened. "You have no idea. Hannah used to tell me stories before she left. Her dad's got issues. Major issues." After school, Madison stayed late to help the janitor, Mr. Wallace, set up chairs for tomorrow's assembly. She liked Mr. Wallace. He was kind, always had a smile despite his bad knee from his army days. "You're a good kid, Madison," he said, watching her stack chairs. "Not many students would stay after to help an old man." "It's no trouble," Madison replied. "My mom always says we should help where we can." She was rushing past the principal's office afterward when it happened. Her backpack strap caught on a door handle, yanking her sideways as she stumbled. The gum she'd been chewing flew from her mouth. Time seemed to slow as she watched it arc through the air and land with a soft splat, right on the seat of Morrison's $5,000 Italian leather chair. The chair sat positioned perfectly behind his desk, visible through his open office door. Madison's heart stopped. She glanced around. The hallway was empty. Maybe she could clean it off quickly. She darted into the office, grabbed a tissue from the box on Morrison's desk. The door slammed shut behind her. Well, well, well. Morrison stood there, having emerged from his private bathroom. His face was already red, veins pulsing in his neck. He moved to the door and turned the lock with a deliberate click. "Sir, I'm so sorry. It was an accident. I'll clean it. Do you know what this chair means to me?" His voice was deadly quiet, which was somehow worse than yelling. This is Italian leather. $5,000. One of the few things my ex-wife didn't take in the divorce. Madison backed against the desk. "I'll pay for it to be cleaned. My mom and I can—" "Your mother." Morrison laughed, a harsh sound like breaking glass. "A single mother working at a law firm. You think she has money to spare?" He moved to his desk, yanking open the bottom drawer. Madison's blood ran cold as she saw what was inside. Hair clippers, multiple pairs, scissors, electric razors, and photographs. Dozens of photographs of students with shaved heads, their faces tear-stained and humiliated. "You know what I learned raising my daughter." "Miss Grainer." Morrison picked up an electric razor, testing its weight. "Children don't understand consequences until they feel them. Really feel them. Please, Mr. Morrison, I said I was sorry." Hannah said she was sorry too, after she broke her mother's vase, after she scratched my car, after she embarrassed me at the country club. His eyes had taken on a glassy sheen. "But sorry doesn't fix anything. Sorry is just a word." He plugged in the razor. It buzzed to life with a menacing hum. "Sit in the chair." Madison's legs felt like water. "Sir, please, you can't." "Sit in the chair." Outside the office, Connor Blake was making his evening rounds. The school security guard walked these halls every night, had for 10 years. He was about to pass Morrison's office when he heard it. A sound that made his blood freeze. Crying, muffled. Desperate crying. Connor knew that sound. He'd made it himself once, 10 years ago, in this very office. His hand went to his head involuntarily, feeling the hair that had finally grown back. He'd been a sophomore then, caught skateboarding in the parking lot. Morrison had called it destruction of property, even though Connor hadn't damaged anything. The principal had locked the door, pulled out those same clippers. Connor pressed his ear to the door. He could hear Morrison's voice, low and threatening, then the buzz of an electric razor. "No," Connor whispered. "Not again." He pulled out his phone, positioning it at the crack under the door. The angle wasn't perfect, but he could see enough. Madison Grainer in the chair. Morrison behind her with the razor. And those tears. Connor's hands shook as he hit record. Then he scrolled through his contacts to a number he'd saved, but never used. Hermione Grainer's cell phone. From the school emergency contact list. He typed quickly, Urgent! Your daughter is in danger. Morrison's office now. Inside the office. Morrison had started cutting. He grabbed a fistful of Madison's hair, pulling her head to the side. "You know what's funny?" he said conversationally, as if they were discussing the weather. "People think hair doesn't matter. It's just dead cells. Right? But take it away." The razor carved a path through her hair. "Take it away, and see how naked they feel. How small." Madison sobbed as chunks of her hair fell onto her uniform. "Please stop. Please. I'll do anything." "Anything," Morrison paused. "Your friend, Sarah, the one in the wheelchair. She scratched the hallway floor with that chair. Maintenance had to buff it out, cost the school money. That's not her fault. She can't help it. Can't or won't." Morrison resumed cutting. "Everyone makes excuses. My Hannah made excuses. I didn't mean to. Daddy, it was an accident." Daddy. But accidents have consequences. He'd shaved half her head now, working with methodical precision. Madison could see herself in the reflection of Morrison's desk lamp. She looked like a broken doll. "There," Morrison said, stepping back to admire his work. "Halfway done, you know. Hannah was quieter than you. She learned not to cry after the first time." Something shifted in his expression, a flicker of memory. He moved to the wall where his diplomas and awards hung in perfect rows, but Madison noticed something else. Cracks in the plaster, painted over but still visible. Fist-sized indentations. "She transferred schools, you know," Morrison continued, running his finger along one of the cracks. "Said she couldn't stand to look at me anymore. Can you imagine? A daughter who can't stand her own father." A framed photo fell from the wall, the mounting damaged. It showed a younger Hannah Morrison, maybe 13. Forcing a smile at some school event, her hair was shorter than in other photos, much shorter. "She had beautiful hair, like yours," Morrison whispered, "until she disappointed me." Connor Blake's hands trembled as he sent the video to Hermione. He knew what this meant. He was risking his job. Maybe worse. Morrison had connections throughout the district, but he couldn't let another child suffer what he'd suffered. He tested the door handle. Locked, of course. The master key was in the main office, but that was too far. He could hear Madison crying harder now. Connor made a decision. He pulled the fire alarm. The piercing wail filled the hallway. But Morrison's office was soundproofed. Of course it was. The man had thought of everything. "Nice try," Morrison said, though Madison couldn't have known about the alarm. "But we're not done here." Across town, Hermione Granger sat in a conference room, reviewing contracts with 3 other lawyers. Her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it, but something made her look. The video was dark, shot through a door crack, but she could see enough. Her daughter, that monster Morrison, and the razor. "Excuse me," Hermione said, standing so fast that her chair fell over. "Hermione, we're in the middle of—" She was already running. 10 years. She'd kept her secret for 10 years. The world knew Hermione Granger as a paralegal who worked her way through law school. A single mother who'd do anything for her daughter. They didn't know about the woman she used to be. They didn't know about the hurricane. Hermione burst through the law firm's lobby, her heels clicking like gunshots on the marble floor. The receptionist called after her, but she was already gone. Her car was parked 3 blocks away. Too far. She kicked off her heels and ran barefoot on the concrete. Her pencil skirt tearing at the seams. People stared, but she didn't care. Her baby was in danger. As she ran, memories flooded back. The octagon cage, the roar of the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, your three-time women's MMA champion, Hermione the Hurricane Grainer. She'd been unstoppable then, 17 knockouts in 20 fights. They said she hit like a force of nature, hence the nickname. But that was before Madison, before the incident that made her hang up her gloves forever. Madison had been 6. Some drunk had grabbed her at a grocery store. Wouldn't let go. Hermione had reacted on instinct. One punch. Just one. The man had needed reconstructive surgery. I'll never use violence again. She'd sworn that night, holding her crying daughter. Never. But promises were just words when your child was in danger. Hermione reached her car and gunned the engine. Westfield High was 12 minutes away. She made it in 6. Back in Morrison's office. The principal was preparing for the final cut. Madison's head was half-shaved now, a stark line dividing her former self from what Morrison was creating. "You know what your problem is, Miss Grainer," Morrison said, testing the razor's battery. "You think kindness matters, helping that crippled girl, staying after to help the janitor. But kindness is weakness. My Hannah was kind too. Look where it got her." "She got away from you," Madison whispered. Morrison's hand froze. "What did you say?" "She got away from you," Madison repeated, finding strength in her desperation. "That's why you're so angry. Not because she broke things, because she escaped." Morrison's face contorted. He grabbed Madison's remaining hair, yanking her head back. "You don't know anything about my family. I know you're broken." Madison gasped through the pain. "I know you're so broken, you have to break everyone else." Outside, Connor Blake had given up on subtlety. He'd found a fire extinguisher and was using it as a battering ram against Morrison's door. The wood was reinforced, but it was starting to crack. "Almost there! Madison!" he shouted. "Hold on!" Morrison heard the banging and laughed. "That door cost $3,000. Reinforced oak. It would take a—" The door exploded off its hinges. But it wasn't Connor who'd kicked it down. Hermione Grainer stood in the doorway like an avenging angel. Her business suit was torn, her feet bare and bleeding from the concrete, her eyes blazing with a fury that made Morrison step back. "Get away from my daughter," she said, her voice carrying the weight of every fight she'd ever won. Morrison's hand tightened on the razor. "Mrs. Grainer, your daughter destroyed school property. I'm simply administering appropriate discipline. I said, get away from her." Morrison's eyes flicked to the wall where an old poster hung, partially hidden behind a filing cabinet. It was from a MMA fight 10 years ago. The Hurricane versus the Hammer. Championship bout. His face went pale. "You're, No, the Hurricane disappeared. They said she died." "Not dead," Hermione said, stepping into the room. Her body had already shifted into a fighter's stance, weight balanced, hands ready. "Just sleeping, but you woke her up." Morrison's grip on the razor tightened as he backed against his desk. The buzz of the electric clippers filled the silence between them. Hermione's eyes never left his face, tracking every micro-movement like a predator studying prey. "This is school property," Morrison said, trying to summon his authority. "You're trespassing. I'll have you arrested." "Try it," Hermione said softly. Madison watched her mother with wide eyes. She'd never seen her like this. Gone was the tired paralegal who came home with coffee stains on her blouse. This was someone else entirely. Someone dangerous. Morrison made his move. He lunged forward with the razor held high like a weapon, aiming for Hermione's face. Time seemed to slow. Hermione's body moved with muscle memory that 10 years couldn't erase. She pivoted on her left foot, ducking under Morrison's wild swing. His momentum carried him forward, off balance. In one fluid motion, Hermione rose from her crouch, her right fist traveling upward in a perfect arc, the same right hook that had ended 12 professional fights. It connected with Morrison's jaw with a sound like a baseball bat hitting leather. The impact lifted Morrison off his feet. His body twisted in the air, the razor flying from his hand. He crashed into the wall behind his desk, his head punching through the plaster. Every framed photo and diploma crashed to the floor in a cascade of breaking glass. Morrison slumped to the ground, unconscious before he hit the floor. "Mom!" Madison's voice was tiny, shocked. Hermione rushed to her daughter, carefully avoiding the scattered hair on the floor. She wrapped Madison in her arms, feeling the girl shake with sobs. "I'm here, baby. I'm here. It's over." Connor Blake stood in the doorway, his phone still recording. "That was incredible." "Call 911, Hermione said, not looking at him. "And whatever you're recording, don't stop." Within minutes, the office was flooded with police officers. They took in the scene, Morrison unconscious against the wall. The collection of hair clippers scattered across the floor, Madison with half her head shaved, and the photos of other students that had fallen from Morrison's drawer. "Ma'am, we need you to step back," Officer Patricia Williams said gently. "I'm not leaving my daughter." "Mom assaulted him in self-defense," Connor said quickly. "I have it all on video. Everything Morrison did." Officer Williams raised an eyebrow. "Everything." Connor pulled out a USB drive from his pocket. "Not just today. 10 years of evidence. I've been collecting it since he did this to me." He removed his security cap, revealing a scar pattern on his scalp where hair no longer grew properly. "I was 15. Got caught skateboarding. He called it vandalism, even though I didn't damage anything. Locked me in this office and shaved patterns into my head. Said it would teach me respect." More officers arrived, including Detective James Mitchell, a veteran cop who'd seen it all, or thought he had until he looked in Morrison's desk drawers. "Jesus Christ," Mitchell breathed. "Williams, you need to see this." The bottom drawer was deeper than it looked. Behind the clippers was a hidden compartment containing dozens of manila folders. Each one had a student's name, a photo of them before and after their head was shaved, and detailed notes in Morrison's handwriting. "Subject displayed defiance by laughing in hallway," Mitchell read. "Punishment administered full head shave. Pattern 3. "What the hell is pattern 3? Connor pointed to a diagram on the wall, previously hidden behind a filing cabinet. It showed different shaving patterns numbered 1 through 8, each designed to be more humiliating than the last. "He had a system," Connor said quietly. "Some kids got zigzags, some got patches. The worst was pattern 8. He'd leave just a tiny tuft at the front, like a horn." Morrison was starting to stir, groaning as paramedics checked him over. His jaw was already swelling, purple bruises blooming across his face. "I want her arrested." He slurred through what might have been a broken jaw. "She attacked me. Everyone saw it." "Actually," Detective Mitchell said, "you're under arrest. Derek Morrison. You're being charged with multiple counts of assault on a minor, false imprisonment, and about 30 other things I'll think of on the way to the station." "You can't do this." Morrison tried to stand but stumbled. "Do you know who I am? I've been principal here for 15 years. The school board will be answering their own questions." Mitchell interrupted. "Especially about why they kept renewing your contract with all these complaints." as they cuffed Morrison. Madison's friend Tyler Chen appeared in the doorway with at least 20 other students behind him. Word had spread fast. "Is it true?" Tyler asked. "Did he really?" Madison nodded, touching her shaved scalp self-consciously. "He did it to my brother 2 years ago." A girl named Destiny Johnson said quietly. "Said Marcus was being aggressive because he asked why his grade was marked wrong, shaved racing stripes into his head. We never reported it because who would believe us over him?" Another student, Phoenix Martinez, finished. "My cousin got pattern 5 for forgetting her homework 3 times. Her parents complained, but the board said Morrison was just enforcing discipline creatively." Detective Mitchell was taking notes furiously. "I need all of you to make statements, every single one." That's when she arrived. A young woman in her mid-20s walked through the crowd of students. She had short blonde hair, purposefully styled, and wore a therapist's ID badge from Austin General Hospital. Her eyes were the same cold blue as Morrison's. "Dad!" Hannah Morrison's voice was steady, but her hands trembled. Morrison's face crumpled. "Hannah, you came back." "I came back when I heard." She looked at Madison, taking in the half-shaved head. "He did it to you, too." "Hannah, sweetheart, tell them this is a misunderstanding." Morrison pleaded. "Tell them I'm a good father. Tell them—" "I'll tell them the truth," Hannah said quietly. She pulled out a worn journal. "I've been waiting 10 years to tell the truth." She handed the journal to Detective Mitchell. "Everything's in there. Every time he shaved my head, every pattern, every reason. The first time was when I was 8. I spilled juice on his newspaper." The room had gone completely silent. Even the other officers had stopped what they were doing to listen. "By the time I was 13, I'd been shaved 14 times. Hannah continued. "Pattern 1 for talking back, pattern 3 for getting a B+, pattern 6 for crying too loud when he was doing it. He'd take pictures afterward. Said it was to document my improvement." "Hannah, please." Morrison's voice broke. "I was trying to make you better, stronger. Look how well you turned out." "I turned out well despite you, not because of you," Hannah said. "I became a therapist to help kids who went through what I went through. And there are so many of them. Dad, so many kids you broke." She turned to Madison. "I'm sorry. I should have spoken up sooner. I thought if I just got away, if I just survived, that would be enough. But silence is what lets monsters keep hunting." More students began speaking up. The quarterback, Mason White, admitted Morrison had shaved a cross into his head for missing practice to visit his dying grandmother. A quiet girl named Faith Anderson showed where hair still wouldn't grow after Morrison's pattern 7 punishment for reading during lunch. "Wait," Detective Mitchell said, studying the files. "Some of these complaints go back 12 years. How did nobody notice?" That's when Board President Richard Thornton arrived, flanked by 2 other board members. His face was already pale, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. "Detective, I think there's been a misunderstanding," Thornton began. "The only misunderstanding," Connor Blake interrupted, pulling out another USB drive, "is how deep this goes. Morrison's been collecting dirt on all of you for years. That's why you never stopped him." Thornton's face went from pale to gray. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" Connor connected his phone to Morrison's computer. Still logged in. File after file appeared on screen. Thornton taking bribes from textbook companies. Vice President Johnson skimming from the athletics fund. Secretary Palmer falsifying attendance records for state funding. Morrison knew about all of it, Connor continued. He kept evidence like trophies. As long as you let him hurt kids, he'd keep your secrets. A perfect circle of corruption. You little... Thornton stepped toward Connor, but Hermione moved between them. Touch him, and you'll be sleeping next to Morrison, she said calmly. Detective Mitchell was already on his radio calling for more units. We're going to need transport for at least 4 more suspects. The story exploded across social media within hours. A student had live-streamed part of the confrontation. The video of Hermione's knockout punch went viral, tagged with hashtags like Justice for Madison and The Hurricane Returns. News vans surrounded Westfield High by evening. Parents who had been silenced for years finally felt safe to speak. The stories kept coming. Morrison had been systematically abusing his power for over a decade, protected by a corrupt board that cared more about their secrets than student safety. The scariest part, one mother told reporters, is that we thought it was normal. He convinced us our kids deserved it, that they needed to learn respect. How many other schools have their own Morrison? That question would prove prophetic. Morrison was arraigned the next morning, his jaw wired shut from Hermione's punch. He pleaded not guilty, but with Connor's evidence, Hannah's journal, and testimony from 43 former victims. Bail was denied, as they led him away in shackles. He tried to speak through his wired jaw, but only managed mumbles. His eyes, though, spoke volumes. They were the eyes of a man who couldn't understand how his kingdom had fallen. Hermione had returned to her daughter's side at the hospital, where a sympathetic hairdresser was evening out Madison's hair into a stylish pixie cut. It actually looks pretty cool, Madison said, studying her reflection. Like I'm ready to fight. You already did fight, Hermione said. You survived. You spoke truth to power even when he was hurting you. That's braver than any punch I ever threw. Mom, why didn't you tell me you were a fighter? Hermione sighed. Because I was afraid. Afraid that violence was all I was good at. Afraid I'd hurt someone again, but sometimes, baby, standing by while evil happens is worse than fighting back. A knock at the door interrupted them. Hannah Morrison entered, looking hesitant. I'm sorry to intrude, she said. I wanted to say thank you, to both of you. Madison gestured to a chair. You don't need to thank us. Yes, I do. Hannah sat down heavily. I've been carrying this guilt for 10 years. All the kids he hurt after I left, I could have stopped it if I'd been brave enough to speak up. You were a child, Hermione said firmly. No child should have to be brave enough to stop an adult predator. Hannah pulled out a tablet. That's actually why I'm here. I've been in contact with other therapists across Texas. We've identified at least 3 more schools with principals showing similar patterns of abuse. Madison's eyes widened. 3 more? Morrison wasn't working alone, Hannah explained. They have a network. They share techniques, protect each other, move between districts when things get too hot. They call themselves the disciplinarians. Then we're not done, Hermione said quietly. No, Hannah agreed. But now we know what we're fighting, and we're not fighting alone anymore. 6 months later. Madison stood in the center of a converted warehouse, demonstrating a self-defense move to a group of teenage girls. Her hair had grown out into a short, spiky style that she'd decided to keep. It made her look fierce, she said, like her mom. Remember, Madison said, adjusting a girl's stance. The point isn't to hurt anyone. It's to create space to escape, to survive. Hermione watched from the side, now officially certified as a self-defense instructor. She'd found a way to use her skills without becoming the violence she feared. Connor Blake had joined them as an assistant instructor, using his security experience to teach awareness and de-escalation. The free classes had started with a dozen students. Now over 200 kids came through every week, learning not just physical defense, but understanding their rights, recognizing abuse, and finding their voices. "Local news is here," Connor announced. "They want to do a follow-up story." Madison looked at her mother, who nodded. They'd done several interviews, using their platform to push for systemic change. The Morrison laws, as they'd become known, now required all disciplinary actions in Texas schools to be video recorded and reviewed by independent committees. As the reporter sat up, a young boy, maybe 14, approached Madison nervously. "You're the girl from the video, the one who stood up to Morrison." Madison nodded. "That's me. My principal, he's been doing things, not shaving heads, but other stuff, making kids stand in the sun for hours, locking us in storage rooms. I'm scared to tell anyone because you think no one will believe you." Madison finished. "I know that feeling, but look at me. Look at what happened when we spoke up. You're not alone anymore." She handed him a card with a hotline number. They'd established it with Hannah's help, staffed by therapists and advocates who specialized in school abuse. The boy took the card with shaking hands. "Thank you." As he walked away, Hermione put her arm around her daughter. "I'm proud of you, baby. You've turned something horrible into something that helps others." "I learned from the best," Madison said, leaning into her mother. "You taught me that strength isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about knowing when to fight and when to help others find their own strength." The news interview began, but Madison's mind was elsewhere. 3 more schools. Who knew how many more beyond that? The fight wasn't over. Maybe it would never be truly over. But as she looked around the warehouse at kids learning to defend themselves, at parents learning warning signs, at a community refusing to be silent anymore, she knew they were winning. "People ask me if I hate Principal Morrison," Madison said into the camera when asked about forgiveness. "I don't. I pity him. He was so broken that breaking others was the only way he could feel whole. But pity doesn't mean silence. Pity doesn't mean letting abuse continue. Sometimes, like my mom taught me, a hurricane needs to make landfall, not to destroy, but to clear away the rot so something better can grow." The reporter nodded, moved by her words. "What would you say to kids who are experiencing abuse right now?" Madison looked directly into the camera. "You're not alone. You're not crazy. You don't deserve it. And no matter how powerful they seem, no matter how protected they appear, abusers can fall. But only if we speak up. Only if we stand together. Only if we refuse to let silence be their shield anymore." As the interview wrapped up, Madison's phone buzzed. Another student from another school, asking for help. She showed it to her mother. "Ready for round 2?" Hermione asked. Madison grinned, her short hair catching the light like a crown. "I was born ready. After all, I'm the daughter of a hurricane." They walked out together into the Texas sun, mother and daughter, fighters both, ready to face whatever storm came next. Behind them, the warehouse hummed with the voices of kids learning that they were stronger than they knew, braver than they believed, and never, ever alone. The war against the disciplinarians had only just begun. But for the first time in years, maybe decades, the bullies were the ones who were afraid. And that, Madison thought as she answered the phone to help another scared kid, was a victory worth any price, even half her hair. The call Madison answered would change everything. "Please, help me," the voice whispered. "I'm Emma Thompson from Riverside Academy. Our principal just locked my friend in a storage closet. She's been there for 3 hours because she wore the wrong color socks. But that's not the worst part." Madison put the phone on speaker so her mother could hear. "What's the worst part?" "Emma, tomorrow they're having a special assembly. Principal Barrett said it's time for a public correction. He has this stage with restraints. Last year, he made a boy stand there for 6 hours until he fainted. Please, I don't know who else to call." Hermione was already grabbing her keys. "Emma, listen carefully. Can you record anything? Do you have proof?" I have something better." Emma's voice grew even quieter. "I have his planning notebook. He dropped it yesterday. It has everything: names, dates, punishments, and there's a section called The Network." Madison's blood ran cold. The Network. 5 principals. They meet once a month. They share ideas. Morrison's name is in here, crossed out now. But the others, they're planning something big. A conference next week where they're going to recruit more principals into their group. Hermione made a quick decision. "Emma, we're coming to you. But first, can you scan those pages and email them to us, every single page?" As they drove toward Riverside Academy, Madison's phone buzzed continuously. Hannah Morrison had sent an urgent message. "My dad just called from jail. He's scared. Says the other principals know he talked. Says they're going to clean house before anyone else can speak up." "What does clean house mean?" Madison asked. Hermione's jaw tightened. "It means they're going to destroy evidence, intimidate witnesses. Maybe worse." They arrived at Riverside Academy to find chaos. Fire trucks surrounded the building. Students stood in the parking lot, some crying, others filming with their phones. "The storage room!" Emma Thompson ran up to them, tears streaming down her face. "Where my friend was locked. Someone set it on fire. She's okay. A janitor got her out. But all the disciplinary records were in that room. Everything's gone." A tall man in a pristine suit watched from the administration building entrance. Principal Barrett. His face showed no emotion as firefighters rushed past him. "That's him," Emma whispered. "He's been texting all morning. I saw one message. It just said, 'Morrison talked. Activate Protocol 7. Madison felt rage building in her chest. These men weren't just bullies. They were organized predators with contingency plans. "Emma, do you still have his notebook?" Hermione asked urgently. Emma pulled a leather journal from her backpack. "I made copies of everything first. Sent them to 12 different email addresses, including yours." "Smart girl," Hermione said. Then louder, "Detective Mitchell, yes, it's Hermione Granger. We have a situation at Riverside Academy." Within an hour, the parking lot was full of police cars. Principal Barrett maintained his calm facade until they found the accelerant residue on his shoes, the same type used in the storage room fire. "You can't prove anything," Barrett said as they cuffed him. "Sometimes electrical fires just happen. Tragic, really." "Is that what you told the other 4 principals in your network?" Detective Mitchell asked. "Because we have your planning notebook. We know about the conference. We know about Protocol 7. Barrett's calm finally cracked. "You have no idea what you're disrupting. We're trying to save education, to bring back discipline and respect. Children today are wild animals. They need structure. They need fear." "No," Madison stepped forward, her voice carrying across the parking lot where hundreds of students had gathered. What children need is safety. What they need is adults who protect them, not predators who hide behind authority. She turned to address the crowd of students. How many of you have been hurt by adults who said it was for your own good? How many of you stayed quiet because you thought no one would believe you? Hands began rising. First a few, then dozens, then almost every student in the crowd. "We believe you," Madison said firmly. "All of you. And we're going to make sure this stops. Not just here, not just at Westfield, but everywhere." The notebook Emma had saved became the key to everything. 5 principals across Texas, all connected, all sharing techniques for creative discipline that bordered on torture. The conference they'd planned was to be held at an abandoned private school, away from prying eyes. But now, law enforcement knew. When the date arrived, instead of finding eager recruits, the disciplinarians found FBI agents waiting. The entire network crumbled in a single day, and somewhere in a Texas prison. Derek Morrison finally understood the truth he'd spent so long denying. Real power doesn't come from breaking others. It comes from helping them become unbreakable. The hurricane had indeed made landfall, and in its wake, a garden of courage bloomed. Years later, Madison Grainer stood before a packed auditorium at Harvard Law School. She was 24 now, about to graduate with honors. The girl who'd lost half her hair had found her whole purpose. The Morrison incident, as textbooks now called it, had become a landmark case study in institutional abuse. But for Madison, it remained deeply personal. She touched her hair, now long again, worn in a style that deliberately showed the small scar where hair still wouldn't grow properly. "People ask why I keep this scar visible," she told her classmates. "I could hide it easily, but scars tell stories, and stories need to be remembered." Her mother sat in the front row, graying now but still radiating that quiet strength. Beside her sat Connor Blake, who'd become a national advocate for student safety. Hannah Morrison was there too, now running a foundation helping abuse survivors. "Derek Morrison died in prison last year," Madison continued. "He never apologized, never admitted wrongdoing. He went to his grave believing he was a victim, but his legacy isn't what he thought it would be. His legacy is every child who learned they deserve better, every parent who learned to look closer, every teacher who learned that discipline without dignity is just abuse." As applause filled the auditorium, Madison smiled. Tomorrow, she'd start her new job at the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. The hurricane's daughter had found her calling, and the storms she'd weather now would be ones of her own choosing.